On the outskirts of a small, misty village nestled deep in the forest, there lived a quiet blacksmith named Elias. He wasn't a man of many words, but his work spoke for him, strong, sturdy tools that lasted for generations. The villagers relied on him for their horseshoes, farm tools, and anything else made of iron. But Elias had a secret, one that only revealed itself under the cold, pale light of the full moon. Elias was a werewolf. It wasn't something he asked for. The curse had been passed down through his bloodline, a dark inheritance from his ancestors. Every month, when the moon was at its fullest, Elias would feel the familiar stirrings of the beast within him. His senses would sharpen, his muscles would tighten, and his skin would itch as if it were too small for the creature trying to escape from within. And then, when the moon climbed high into the sky, he would change. To protect the village, Elias had learned to control his transformations. Every full moon, he would lock himself away deep in the forest, in an old stone cellar that had been built by his father and grandfather before him. It was fortified with heavy iron bars, chains, and locks, enough to hold even the mightiest of beasts. Elias would stay there until dawn, when the curse would loosen its grip on him, and he could return to his human form, battered and exhausted but himself again. For years, this had been his routine, and it had worked. The villagers never suspected that their quiet blacksmith harbored a monstrous secret. But one fateful autumn, everything changed. The village was abuzz with excitement as the harvest festival approached. It was the biggest event of the year, a celebration of the end of the growing season with feasts, dancing, and bonfires. But this year, the full moon coincided with the festival, and Elias knew he had to be careful. On the day of the festival, Elias worked late in his forge, finishing up a set of iron tools for a local farmer. He planned to leave for the forest as soon as the sun began to set, but fate had other plans. A group of villagers, led by a man named Victor, arrived at the forge just before dusk, insisting that Elias come to the festival. "You can't stay locked up in that forge of yours all the time," Victor said, clapping a hand on Elias's shoulder. "Come, join us. The whole village will be there." Elias tried to decline, his heart racing as he glanced at the darkening sky, but Victor was insistent. The blacksmith had been a fixture in the village for years, always helping others but never participating in the festivities. It was time, Victor said, for him to enjoy the fruits of the village's hard work. Reluctantly, and with the moon climbing higher by the minute, Elias agreed, but only for a short while. He planned to slip away as soon as he could. The festival was in full swing when they arrived. Lanterns hung from the trees, casting a warm glow over the village square. Music filled the air, and the scent of roasted meat and fresh bread wafted through the crowd. Elias kept his distance from the others, his senses already heightened by the nearing transformation. He could feel the beast stirring inside him, impatient and hungry. As the night wore on, Elias began to feel the change coming faster than usual. His heart pounded, his skin prickled with heat, and his vision blurred. The moon, hidden behind a thick veil of clouds for most of the evening, finally broke through, its silver light bathing the village in an eerie glow. Panic surged through Elias. He needed to get away before it was too late. He slipped into the shadows, weaving through the crowd, but before he could reach the edge of the village, a child ran into him. It was young Amelia, the baker's daughter, her face flushed with excitement. She looked up at Elias with wide eyes. "Are you leaving already, Mr. Elias?" she asked innocently. Elias could barely respond, his voice strained. I need to go." But before he could move, the transformation hit him like a storm. His bones twisted, his muscles bulged, and a guttural growl tore from his throat as his body began to reshape itself. The change was happening faster than ever, and Elias had no time to reach the forest. The villagers, sensing something was wrong, turned to see their quiet blacksmith convulsing in the center of the square. His form warped and grew, fur sprouting from his skin, his eyes glowing a fierce amber. Within moments, Elias was no longer a man but a towering werewolf, a beast of nightmarish proportions. Screams erupted from the crowd as people scattered, trying to escape the monster in their midst. But Elias, no longer fully in control, let out a thunderous roar and charged toward the woods, knocking over stalls and scattering barrels in his path. The beast inside him was wild, and though he fought to hold it back, it surged forward, driven by instinct. Victor, brave and foolish, grabbed a pitchfork and shouted for the villagers to help him stop the creature. But no one dared come near. The werewolf's claws slashed through the air, and its growls echoed through the night as it lashed out in its frenzy. But then, just as the chaos reached its peak, a voice cut through the noise. It was Amelia, the little girl who had stopped Elias earlier. She stood at the edge of the square, staring at the monstrous figure with a strange calmness. "Elias?" she called softly. The werewolf paused, its growl fading into a low rumble. It turned its massive head toward the girl, and for a brief moment, Elias, buried deep inside the beast, felt a spark of recognition. His chest heaved with heavy breaths, but he didn't move. The villagers, watching in awe, held their breath. Amelia stepped forward, her small hand outstretched. "It's okay," she said, her voice steady. "You don't have to be afraid." The werewolf, towering over her, let out a low, rumbling growl. But then, slowly, the beast began to retreat. The fury that had consumed Elias moments before started to ebb, replaced by a strange calm. He could feel the human part of him fighting its way back to the surface, struggling to regain control. The transformation wasn't immediate, but before long, the fur receded, the claws dulled, and the monstrous form of the werewolf began to shrink back into the familiar figure of Elias. He collapsed to the ground, exhausted and shaking, his clothes torn and his body aching. The villagers, still in shock, didn't move for several moments. But Amelia, fearless and kind, knelt beside him. "Elias," she whispered, her small hand on his arm. "It's over now." When Elias finally opened his eyes, the full moon was still high in the sky, but the beast within him was quiet. The villagers, though wary, slowly approached, led by Victor, who had dropped his pitchfork. No one said a word as Elias sat up, trembling and weak. He expected fear, anger, perhaps even hatred from the people he had lived among for so long. But instead, Victor extended a hand to help him to his feet. "We didn't know," Victor said quietly. "But now we do. You've lived with this burden alone for too long." Elias stared at them, unable to speak, his heart heavy with guilt and relief. "You're still one of us," Victor continued. "We'll find a way to help you, Elias. You don't have to hide anymore." From that night on, the village of Hawthorne Grove changed. Elias was no longer the quiet blacksmith with a dark secret. Instead, he became a part of the village in a way he never had before, with the people he had once feared would cast him out now standing by his side. The full moon still came, but now, when they did, Elias wasn't alone. The villagers helped him build a stronger cellar, one that could hold even the wildest of beasts, and they stood watch, ensuring that no harm came to him or to anyone else during those long nights. And in time, Elias found peace, knowing that even a werewolf could find a place to call home.